what are the economic factors affecting the redevelopment of brownfield sites? And the critical things are that we don't know what we're getting into when we take a look at a site. We don't know if it costs $1 or $1 million to clean up that site. We assume very often that they're inverted in value. And what do we mean by that? We mean that if the acre of land was clean and its value was $100,000, we're concerned here about what is the cleanup cost of this site. We've heard terrible stories. They float through the economic world, and anytime you get guys together talking about commerce and exchange, there's a developer that we've worked with, and she says very readily, it's that upside down risk that has to be defined. You just don't know what's there. And you can't get traditional lending to come into a site until you've got a site's cost defined and have sources of funding that can take the contamination and bring it under control. And there's lots of advances in how to deal with contamination, but first thing you have to know is, are we contaminated? What's the story there? I provided some definitions down at the bottom of this sheet about the process. The phase one is something that I think a lot of people have heard about. You can't do a commercial transaction at this point without one. And essentially, it's a study of the history of the site. And it's someone who walks the site and takes a look at what's there and notes areas of concern, moves through, sees what the problems are, sees drums spilled in a corner, sees staining on a floor, sees asbestos or what they suspect to be asbestos, might see waste lagoons on a site, may see backfilled areas that might have taken some of the slag or ash from a factory at one point and filled those in, and notes those things and says that these are areas of concern, they need to be further sampled, and those lead to the phase two. Phase two is when you go on a site, you drill some holes, you do some sampling, you figure out what you got. It may lead to a phase three. It may lead to a different approach, which might be a site characterization or leading right into a remedial action plan. Phase three is, generally speaking, like you may have a certain round of tests with your physician, and then they want some additional kind of tests to further define what you've got. So if we find an area that's contaminated on a site, we may need to go in and do some additional drilling to define just how large this area is, to get some estimate of the soils that are involved, that are impacted. Sometimes that can be considered a phase three, sometimes it's just extended phase two. It's just more data till you know what you've got. And the problem that we have very often with these sites is that you've got to make a front-end commitment to get them to a level playing field. You have to invest some money to get some definitions. And very often that needs to be public money, because many times brownfield sites are held as other corporate assets are in one LLC on that site, and there may not be any resources available to develop this information, and or owners may be reluctant to go in and find out what's there, because then they define the liability and they don't want to go forward, and they're concerned about what kind of enforcement actions will be in place. And so the sites can hang in sort of a limbo. There are now more advanced tools available to municipalities to be able to go on sites, and we didn't have those in the past. You can get on sites for many different reasons now, health concerns, the state can go on site, and EPA will provide funding, the state will provide funding to go and pursue those kinds of assessments. Often, if you have an intended outcome, if you want to make something happen on that site, because the funding's very competitively sought. And so it's deals that look like they're going to happen that can work through to get the larger funds. There's a program that the state has just come out with called Municipal Pilot Program. And it had one round last year, and it's just been announced for another round this year. And it takes cobbling together a number of programs. For larger cities, like Waterbury, there was a pool available of up to $650,000 for one project. That can make a difference. You can get in there, demolish the site, do some of the abatement. You can go after specific cleanup grants from EPA. You can work with HUD on programs. The Economic Development Administration has funding. You can tap different resources when you've got an idea, and you can show some control and access. Back one step. In order to be eligible for federal funding, you have to have an all-appropriate inquiry phase 1. It's a 1527E for those of you who I know are rapidly interested in getting that down. And the point of that is that it protects the municipality, it protects the bank, and it protects the operator from liability under federal law for not having done due diligence. You cannot get funding from the feds on any project without having done that phase 1 first. No municipality should step into any site to find out later on that they're not going to be able to get this funding that's available without having done that appropriate due diligence beforehand.